pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start with the approval of the agenda, but I know we have a change, so if somebody wants to make a motion for the change.
Okay. I make a motion that we move administrator comments to after community comments on this agenda. Move in the agenda to administrator comments after community comments.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Need a motion for the approval of the open session minutes from September 28th.
I make a motion to approve the open session minutes of September 28th, 2015.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Excuse me, that was just September 14th we were approving. Today's the 28th.
Oh,
That's right.
Okay. I was really confused over here.
I was just reading off the agenda, so I don't know what day it is.
Okay, yep.
That's nice.
Okay.
So should we redo that?
Yeah.
Or just,
So I make a motion
Let's try
to
that
approve
again.
the open session minutes of September 14th, 2015.
I second that. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so it passes. Any community comments? Anybody out there that has any questions, comments at this point? No? Yeah?
Sean, thank you. Has, I heard recently that the local governments at the state level were reviewing the PAC testing again?
That's exactly what I'm going to talk about tonight. If you look under I don't know if you have Sean, if you have a copy of the
Yep, agenda, yeah. I left mine on, I just picked it up.
decision, because they released both MCAS and PARC results
Yeah,
last week.
yeah.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to talk about the timeline.
Okay, so I'll ask my questions then.
Okay.
I wasn't sure, community time, is it too late?
Yeah,
to
like
do-
when is it appropriate?
Yeah, so please fire away when
When we discuss
Okay.
it.
we get to that.
Okay, so we don't have Chris Bashara here, so no student comments this evening, so we'll go right to administrator comments with Ann Meyer.
So thanks for the opportunity to update you a little bit on some of the great things that have happened since the override passed for Nisco Hill. And one of the big ones is we have an interscholastic program. This is our 8th year having an interscholastic program, and we've been completely self-funded in that time. We started with 3 sports, cross-country, basketball, and softball and baseball in the spring, and we have a lot more sports now. We've added quite a few along the way, but it's always self-funded, so that means that we charged a fee for from the parents for each student that participated, and we did a ton of fundraising. And you know, when we do fundraising, that's on the backs of parents again, and it's usually the sports parents that fund that. So we received $10,000 transportation sum for our interscholastic, so we won't have to do so many fundraisers. We actually don't have to do any. We are keeping 2 that are very student-related and fun, and they want to keep a dodgeball and the girls versus boy basketball game, so those are kind of tradition at this point. Our fee is at $165, which is the same fee as last year, and that is due to the addition of 2 new sports this year. We have volleyball for the girls in the fall, and then we'll have volleyball for the boys in the spring. And these are programs that support the high school programs for their sports programs, bringing in more athletes and getting the children excited about it. So we're very excited about it. I was neglectful in coming forth and asking permission to add a new sport. I never asked for permission before, I just did it, so I'm going to ask for forgiveness. I didn't know the procedure, so I do apologize for that.
I hope we don't live by the old motto, it's better to, what is it? Beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. Sometimes my daughters operate that way.
Well, this was an unknowing.
I'm just kidding.
I just didn't realize, but I appreciate the support of the school committee in that. We also, with the addition of stipends, we ran very lean on stipends. So for example, our art program, our after-school art club for 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade, I ran through the enrichment program to get our staffing funded for doing these after-school activities. And if you were in the art program for 5th and 6th grade, if you stayed in all year long, it was about a $200 fee. So it's about $50 per quarter. Now it's free, it's after school, because we have a stipend for that. Same thing with jazz band, a cappella, everything had a fee attached to it, and now there aren't any fees attached to these things because the stipends are taken care of. So it's really a very nice environment right now. We have yearbook, and I am starting a newspaper club, which we don't have a stipend for, but I'm going to figure something out. So it's really just a different environment, and you can feel the vibe in the school. It's much different. I think the parents are really appreciating all the pressure off of them from all the fees that we were charging and all the fundraisers, so cut down on the fundraisers. We also were able to add world language to the school, which we're in the beginning processes. And we're working with the high school for our world language because we're a feeder program. We know we're a feeder program, and I want the high school, the children, when they go into the high school, to have benefits from taking the language at Misco Hill. So we're in the works for that. Everything's pretty much at level 1 right now. 7th and 8th graders can take French or Spanish. The only level 2 class we have, which is not equal to even the level 1 class at the high school, is Spanish. So we have a Spanish 1, and then 8th graders can take a Spanish 2. That will change in the future. Hopefully we can grow it to 4 levels of Spanish, 4 levels of French, and be able to move that to the high school, take an entrance exam, and maybe that would be counting for level 1, and the students can start with level 2. It's all about working together with the high school. They have to have the staff in place, as do we. And very exciting, we have Mandarin for the 5th and 6th grade. We have a lovely Mandarin teacher, Xu Lu. She is from China. Her husband got transferred here to Worcester. She was a teacher in China. She was a teacher of English in China. So she knows the content. She knows how to teach. The only thing is she used to teach 40 or 50 students, and they were all perfect, and she's teaching 20 or 25, and we're not quite as perfect as it is the only thing, but it's going well. The children are enjoying it. I kind of forced some kids to go in it. They wanted to drop it. Like I told them to give it a couple weeks. They're in it. They'll love it. And we're all set for the second half of the year with her classes. They're full at this point. So very exciting with all the changes with the funding. It's amazing what funding can do for us. So it's very nice, and I really appreciate all the support that the school committee gave to that override.
And regarding the interscholastic sports, are you seeing an increase in participation? Are your numbers up?
No, our numbers are about the same. Our numbers are really high. We have over 100 students during cross-country every year. And then our volleyball, we kept everyone that was on the team. We could have made a little bit of cuts, but they weren't significant, so we kept everyone. So that's new. That's an increase in numbers. But basketball, volleyball, it'll be the same, basketball, baseball, softball, it'll be the same because those are cut sports, so we only take so many students. And then track and field, I think we'll see a decrease because we're going to have boys volleyball, so I think some of those students may slide over, which is fine, just like some of our cross-country students slid over to girls volleyball. It's fine because that's what they're interested in, and we want them to be doing something. We want to give them options that they're interested in that they'll carry through with the high school. So really, the cross-country meets are fabulous because it really is a horde of Misco Hill students, and then we play against a team 25 and we're 110, so it's very nice. And the cross-country does this very well in supporting the program as well.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So can you explain, so I know that we have an athletic boosters club at Misco. They're the ones who will be running the fundraisers, right? Those are the 2 that you were talking about, so that will come from the boosters.
What the problem is, over the years, we haven't had booster parent support. So Scott Glassman, myself, and the 2 PE teachers basically run these things. Every once in a while, like last year, we had a real good support for the girls and boys basketball, girls versus boys basketball. Parents did a fabulous job. we had no one for dodgeball. So it depends on the years, which is fine, but we don't have a strong support program, boosters program for our interscholastic sports right now.
Okay, and when you do those fundraisers, that money goes towards all the different sports that in this town?
It goes toward the funding of the sports, right? They're not equal. They're not equal, just like football costs more and then another thing, cross-country does at the high school. Some of our sports cost more and some sports kind of carry the other sports, so.
But regardless, everyone pays $165 across the board?
Everyone pays $165. And honestly, I have never heard a complaint about the fee, or mostly parents were very excited that we had a program. And if there are any complaints ever, please just forward them to me so I can sit down with a parent and go through our fee structure and how we support. Busing is very expensive, so it's hard to bus. So we have as many games or events as the high school junior varsity. So we are on the same kind of schedule as they are. In the beginning, we weren't. We would have like 8 basketball games. Now we have a full 16 to 18.
Okay. Can I also ask you a question about the after-school clubs? So like the art, which used to be an enrichment, is now going to become a club. Has there been a notice that's gone out to parents about all the different clubs? Like, I've heard Destination Imagination and different things, but I haven't seen anything yet, so I'm just wondering if it's like in the works or...
I thought we did send something out.
Oh,
We don't
okay,
have
I must have
anybody.
missed it.
Yeah, we don't have anyone for Destination Imagination at this point. I don't have a facilitator for that, but all the other ones are.
Okay, I must have missed it.
The national, the Junior National Honor Society, that's just coming up and running because I'm meeting with the advisors and we've got to work within a plan of that program. But most everything else is up and running. But we'll just send out another one. I'll just send them
Okay,
announcements
I
again.
somehow missed it, I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah, no.
Okay. And then one final question about the languages. You talked about expanding them. How do we get from here to expanding them so that they're, more accessible to all students?
Well, it is accessible to all students because any student can take them. I have a difficult time because the parents on the surveys and the parents when I'm sitting in meetings are very excited about the language. My students sometimes aren't quite as excited and they're trying to opt out of the language. So that's something that I'm dealing with, which is normal middle school kind of not forward-thinking. So we have level 1. Next year we'll definitely offer French 1 and 2, and it'll just increase like that. So that's an easy one. We'll work with the high school to see how we can get 4 levels of language here at MISCO to be equivalent to year 1 of the high school language.
Okay.
Mandarin, we're gonna see how that works out. That's an easy expansion. She's only at a .4 right now, and the interest is probably a .4. We could increase her next year if the funding is available, move her to 7th grade, and then move to 8th grade. So we'll see how that program rolls out in the interest level and everything. So I'm excited about that. I think it will work out very well. And hopefully we can get French down and Spanish down into 5th and 6th grade. That's just a matter of staffing.
Okay.
So we'll get there.
No, go right ahead.
You're looking at having 4 sections of this, so starting, it's per semester?
Per semester, so that's why
So it would be the 7th, a full year in 7th and a full year in 8th.
Right,
Get it
because
to
we're on,
24.
because they only get it 3 days in a 6-day cycle, whereas the high school will get their language every single, well, an equivalent of 6 days in a 6-day cycle. So I have to get those hours.
I was just
for the
wanting to
high
make sure I
school.
understood how your 4 sections
And we need to make sure our curriculum is exactly the same curriculum as the high school's curriculum. We work with that right now with the algebra. Our algebra in 8th grade is exactly the high school's algebra. If they change their curriculum, they change their book, no words, we just change our curriculum as well, because it's a high school course.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along to superintendent comments.
Okay, I usually save this for the end, but seeing that Jay is going to the same place where Ann is going to the Mendon Town Hall. You have in your reports our very first year-to-date FY16 expenditure report. Jay, is there any particular line that you want to highlight or any type of commentary regarding where we are right now?
No, it's early in the year. Obviously, we're in really great shape right now. If we stay this way for the rest of the year, we'll be fine. I think I highlighted in one of the versions you got the accounts that fund the stipends for some of the extracurricular stuff, just so you can see where that is in the budget. But everything is in good shape right now. We've had a few maintenance issues, as always, at the beginning of the year, with pipes with little holes and things like that, but we're dealing with them. So right now, you know, we're fine. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. The second piece that I have is I put in your packet a couple documents, actually 3 documents. One summarizing the release of the statewide MCAS results versus the preliminary PARC results. Keep in mind, during our first meeting in November, that's when we'll kind of do a deep dive into our district MCAS results and kind of go grade by grade and show versus comparable districts versus regional districts and versus the statewide results. But I'd like to kind of keep my comments around where the state is with regard to MCAS versus PARC. It's a little challenging in the sense that PARC results that were released were only a preliminary or partial release. They only released the results from the kiddos that took it on a computer, which represented about 59% of the kids that took the PARC. So the ones that took it using traditional paper and pencil, those results are not out yet, okay? Keep in mind also, this was an interesting year in that it was almost a 50-50 split of the districts that did MCAS versus PARC, okay? So right now, a decision is being made, probably not with all of the information, but a considerable sample size. So some of the good news, I think there's a lot of good news with regard to the MCAS results. It showed overall statewide some fairly good gains in both ELA and math. Good gains particularly for the terminal test at grade 10. And then also some narrowing of the achievement gap between white and African American and white and Hispanic students. Okay? I think if there's one thing that could be conceivably a headline in looking at MCAS versus PARC, it's when we look at MCAS, we're very used to 4 performance levels. Okay, so warning or at the high school level failing, needs improvement, proficient, and advanced. Okay, and usually when we're reporting out the scores, we're reporting out percentage, proficient or better, that is proficient or advanced. With this PARC test, there's 5 levels of performance. Right now, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 and 5 being considered to be meeting the expectations for the grade level standards. I think the way that they're defining it, and keep in mind, districts that did give the PARC haven't even gotten the reports back for their kids, is that levels 4 and 5 would be the student is college, on track for college and careers, okay? I think one of the headlines that comes out of this is that the PARC is not necessarily a one-to-one matchup with the MCAS. That if you were to look at the acceptable level ratings or the proficient ratings for MCAS versus level 4 and 5, the meeting expectations for PARC, they're on the ballpark of anywhere between about 10 to 20% lower with Park, okay? So as an example, as you can see on this memo that kind of shows side by side the MCAS and the Park results for third grade ELA statewide. Third graders in ELA were about 60% proficient. On the Park, it's comparable to about 47%. If you look at third grade math, statewide in MCAS, it's around 71%, and third grade math is 51%. If you go through the results, you find probably also some of the most stark differences in the math scores, okay? Keep in mind the conversation is about the Park being a test that is aligned with the Common Core standards, where MCAS, by the test designer's admission, is not quite there yet as far as being conceptually aligned with the Common Core standards. I would also make the argument, and I'd like to show you this. This was shown at the Massachusetts Board of Education. Whoops, sorry about that. Just reopen the file that I have. Just for a second. So if you just take a look at this slide, and not my daughter. So this is a continuum of, since we've been giving the MCAS in grade 10, and keep in mind, since the year 2003, it's been a graduation requirement for all students, okay? So if we were to look at this continuum of, what do we've got here, 17 years worth of data from 1998 to the present of what we've done as a state, going back to 1998 in that gold color, statewide we were at 38% of our kids were proficient in ELA, and 24% of our kids were proficient or better in math. And look where we are right now statewide, 91% proficient in ELA and 79% proficient in mathematics. So it is an evolution. It is a process of districts aligning their curriculum with a set group of standards. It's about teachers aligning their instruction and their assessment practices with the standards. So I guess when I initially looked at some of the Park results, I said to myself, oof, that's going to be a public relations, if the state does make the decision to adopt Park, that's going to be a little bit of a public relations challenge that I'm used to getting my daughter's report every year. I see how she's doing. And what if you're a parent that is used to your child being proficient or advanced, and then the following year you're getting a report and they're level 2, level 3, they're below their grade level expectation. So I think it's an evolutionary piece. I think the decision is going to be in the hands of the board. I put the timeline. The next set of hearings on it will be at the Board of Education's 2-day meetings. They do 2 days. It's going to be Monday the 21st and Tuesday the 22nd at Malden. And then the final decision is going to be made by the board at their November meeting on November 17th. I think really the decision is going to be, are they going to adopt the park, or are they going to choose to not adopt the park, knowing that they'll have to redesign the MCAS to make what they've referred to as an MCAS 2.0, a version of a test that is more carefully aligned with the Common Core standards, but also looking at a delivery system of online testing. There is a tacit admission that a paper and pencil test, it just isn't quick enough as far as the turnaround time, and really to train our kids, to be assessed using an online tool.
Does, year before last was the first year that several schools were tapped to do some preliminary?
Actually, most schools were, including our district here at the middle school. Yeah, it was just strictly some schools, but our middle school was selected, and it was only to test items.
Right.
The districts never got any results back.
So this past year, certain districts chose to.
We had a choice, and it went before the committee, and I think we deliberated probably for about a good hour about it, of whether to stick with MCAS or Park, and my recommendation at the time was to stay with MCAS.
Are there, because they've really only done it fully 1 year, the learning curve going from pencil paper test to the actual computer test, are they looking at the learning curve for the students in that transition, for the discrepancy in how much lower the scores are?
I think, and that'll be part of the board's discussion, I think more of the discrepancy kind of speaks to the increased rigor of the standards than necessarily difficulty accessing an online test.
Just because we saw a lot of difficulty with our elementary students in taking that test, so I didn't know. At the upper levels, there wouldn't be as great a difficulty, but it's a significant difficulty.
But I think that's going to be part of, I think there's one handout that I gave you here of looking at some of the considerations. If you're looking at, instructional impact, the technical quality of the test, design and feedback, governance, operational viability, the costs involved, your point that you're speaking to, Tana, as far as our schools technologically ready for Park, and so on. I was in a meeting with Commissioner Chester this morning. Their data has that 80% of schools statewide feel like they are ready from technology perspective, as far as having appropriate hardware and appropriate bandwidth to successfully implement the park. And of those 20% districts that aren't, the overwhelming majority of them are urban districts.
Can I ask some questions about that? Or is it not time yet?
Yep, you can.
So, one of the, that's, some of the increase on that, it's not my original question, but after seeing that graph, it takes a while for kids and teachers to, like you said, adjust to it, learn how to teach the test, and after a while, those kids who are graduating now have had MCAS since the beginning of school, so they're used to it. So it's not, different questions, same format, used to it. You take the SATs a dozen times, you're going to get a higher score, right?
Hopefully.
And if you go to Princeton review or something, you get better, right? Especially if you teach them to the test. So my question is, on this new testing system, you mentioned online, not online. And my understanding that's been explained to me is when it goes to online, the kids can no longer go back and look at questions that they've had versus on a written paper. Because I know many times, at least when I took a test, 3 pages later, someone clicked and said, wait a minute, I don't think that answer was right. I gotta go back and change it. And they don't have that ability to do that now, right? On that test?
To my knowledge, they can within certain sections of the test. So you
Okay.
can't go back to previous sections, but if you're, say, within a section that's 15 questions, it would be, to make a paper and pencil analogy, it would be like, say you're taking a section of the SAT, and then you have a break, and somebody actually came and sealed the section of the
Yeah,
booklet.
understood, that's
Yeah.
normal, that's on the paper
Yeah.
test. I mean, and then the other thing is, I would think about is so this is now being judged nationally, right, to your point? Isn't that going nationally, this testing?
It's a consortium, and the consortium originally started with, I want to say 13 or 14 states, and now it's down to 8. And, you know, something that I didn't
So-
discuss here, it's a very political issue.
So I guess, the question is, what did, 5 other states decided not to go with this, right? And then the second thing is, how, I guess, what impact do you think it'll have on anything? Are they still gonna make it a requirement for graduating, or are they gonna take it out? Is it, is NCATS, trying to get the level of students up and all that?
I think whatever test the state ends up, whether they go with PARC or with MCAS, it will still be a graduation requirement. As far as what they're doing now, the decision that they're making to implement a new test for the spring of 16, the decision is being made right now for only grades 3 through 8. They've established that the grade 10 MCAS will stay in place through 2018, so that the kids that are in high school now will continue with MCAS. As far as your question with regard to why 5 fewer states, I think it's really kind of speaks to the political issue that is the Common Core state standards. That I think in various regions of this country, the Common Core is highly political. As a matter of fact, right now, there is potentially a ballot initiative that'll go on the 2016 ballot here in Massachusetts to basically dismiss and not adopt the Common Core state standards. In a lot of, shall we say, southern and particularly red states, it's become a political football. And of those 5 states that have gotten out of the PARC consortium, there are states where there's a lot of noise regarding the Common Core standards. I think also some of it too is also press back on high stakes testing. And we can talk about the political right and their feeling with regard to the Common Core standards, but on the other side of the political spectrum is very much a discussion that we're over-testing kids, that we are relying on testing, particularly standardized testing, to make a lot of high-stakes decisions about kids. So as a result, there's press back against the PARC, there's press back against the company that manufactures it, Pearson, which has kind of become a conglomerate in the education world. So I think there's a lot of highly charged issues that have entered the political fray in this decision. So I hope I didn't give you a long-winded
No,
answer to your question.
that's good. I just wonder where kids are taking, critical testing that's gonna judge them, or put a certain mark on them, right?
Mhm.
And with this whole Common Core thing, it's a little crazy in my personal opinion, but, that they're not taking many, I don't think they take many online tests today in school, so to have a most important test online, that in itself is gonna take a long time to adjust. You know, a lot of kids still aren't doing a lot online, so, in terms of test taking, from what I can tell.
I think we discussed that when we were making the decision with the opt-out, was that there's, especially at some of the lower levels, you're talking about your third and fourth graders that haven't had a huge introduction to typing and
Yeah.
keyboarding and.
Yeah, it's a time test. So,
Yeah.
one last question on this. If the state adopts it, does that mean it's completely mandated by each school district?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're in a situation now where they could be making the decision on November 17th
Right.
for what we're going to start to administer to our grade 3 through 8 students starting in March. And, you know, candidly, I understand the constraints that they're under, but I really wish that this decision could have been made earlier so we could start prepping our teachers and our students earlier. I mean, you know, we're doing the absolute best we can. We do give our students exposure to some opportunities. You know, for example, district-wide, we use a math program called IXL, which is, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're comparable with your children
Yeah.
or familiar with it with your children, but some of that, but I do think we need to give our kids more opportunities.
And technologically, how do we fare? Is our infrastructure in place so that many students could be taking
I think we
the test
fare
successfully?
very well
Okay.
because particularly at our secondary level at the middle school and the high school with our one-to-one learning initiative, we fare very well. And I think we have enough infrastructure, enough desktops at the elementary level to support our third and fourth grade students.
Okay. In staff, because oftentimes when you're testing online, it's not just the teacher in the classroom, you also need
Sure.
those troubleshooters.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
I mean, good point. I mean, would they be taking it on their iPads?
Mhm.
And so when you talk about infrastructure, did you do a simulation of all 600 kids all at once?
We did.
Okay.
We gave it to 2 grades simultaneously when we did the field testing in the spring of 14. And simultaneously gave it to about 400 students. One of our big challenges, and who would think this, but this is, you know, like most things, the devil is in the details. So we wanted kids to actually have a physical keyboard when they were doing it on their iPads. Because what happens is, if you know with an iPad, when the keyboard pops up, it's going to hide a considerable portion of the
Yeah.
screen. Well, when you're getting an iPad keyboard, like I'm looking at Lee's right now, it's usually Bluetooth. If you think about it, if you got 25 kiddos in a classroom sitting next to each other, you can't do Bluetooth. It doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
So we actually had to get physical, you know, plug-in keyboards. You know, and again, we complain about hidden costs, unfunded mandates, and so on. But exactly, you're talking about, I think, you know, when we got a deal, but you're still talking about $13 a keyboard, you know, to administer a test. So, you know, there are a lot of pragmatic considerations. We do have the staffing, but it does have challenges. You know, realize you have to have a secure logon to a site. Our tech director had to physically program each iPad so that kids also would, once they were on the Pearson website, they couldn't get on Internet Explorer or Safari to
Oh, yeah,
go to,
good idea.
because think about it.
Right,
You can
yeah.
Google answers and so on. So there's a lot
Square
of,
root of five, you know,
so there's a
25.
lot of considerations that you don't think about when
Yeah.
you're administering a traditional paper and pencil test that you obviously have to think about with this.
And are they allowed to have paper and pencil on the desk as well, for scratch work, especially in the
Yes.
mathematics section? Okay.
So we never received, we don't get any data back from those testing sessions that were held.
The field test that we did in
Yeah.
the spring of 14, no,
Right.
nothing. Because we were just, our kids were testing test items.
Yeah, the questions,
Yeah.
the specific questions.
And if you realize that kind of, and I still have Chris Russo echoing in my head, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but saying, okay, so let's get this straight, we're doing all these things, and we're disrupting the life, and we're not gonna get any of this, results back whatsoever. So I think that kind of shaded some of our deliberation regarding MCAS versus Park as well.
How are they making a decision? I mean, I understand 59% that was online, but you could have a drastic different result on paper, maybe, right? I mean, statistically you could have. I mean, granted, you tested more than 30 people, so statistically you're okay on the online part. But, how come we don't have the results, or do they have the detailed results of that? Because how can they make a decision on something that you're not getting the results to really raise your hand back to the education board and saying, we see issues with it?
You're asking some really, really good questions.
Right, so
I mean,
this
that's like-
kind of alludes this piece of paper about the considerations. Like, I looked at this earlier today and I said, yeah, these are all really great questions. Are they gonna justify their reason for choosing for or against this based on this list of questions and report back out? Like, is there any intention?
I am told that
These are great questions.
I am told that the paper and pencil results will be available in October.
But these are like larger questions. These are, how does MCAS and Park compare in terms of the ambition of curriculum expected of educators and the level of performance expected of students? How does MCAS and Park compare in terms of usefulness and timeliness of information to educators and parents? I mean, that's just one section. What do students who took Park think of it? What do educators say about Park versus MCAS?
And realize, some of that data they do have with regard to, for the districts that took it, they surveyed principals, they surveyed the teachers that administered it, they surveyed the kids. So they got, some good aggregate data based upon those survey results. Obviously, because we didn't give Park, we're not in the know as far as some of that data.
Well, and also what will happen if we say no to Park? Is MCAS going to need to be revised to align more
Correct,
closely
yeah,
with the Common Core?
the sense is, it would probably, at a minimum, be, realistically, probably a 2-year process to redesign the MCAS, not only to make it an online test, but also to change the types of test items that kids are tested upon.
Yeah, that's the part that confuses me. I mean, how many different ways can you test 2 + 2? 5 × 5, the square root of something. What word is the noun in the sentence, right? I mean, it seems like and it's not, obviously you're not going to decide at the state level, but I hope everybody realizes that you're going to take away from true learning in the classroom, because the teachers are going to feel that they have to learn the test, figure out how to teach the test so that they get better scores.
But
I mean, that's right. I mean, unless you think I'm completely wrong, but I think we're going to lose some core.
I don't necessarily
teaching them.
think, I don't think you're completely wrong, but I think, Sean, it's more the type, you gave it as an example, 2 + 2, 5 × 5, and I would counter with, well, the types of test questions, if that's MCAS, Park is going to be more to the extent of, tell me what the square root of 25 is, and show me 3 different ways in which you can develop your answer and explain it in depth. Just as an example, probably not the most artful example that I
No,
can give.
that's good.
But
But-
it's true, it's more thoughtful, it's deeper.
Exactly. You know, and the example that I heard this morning is some of the differences in, say, the writing samples that they're going to expect kids to produce versus what they have to produce now on MCAS. I think what we have on MCAS, you know, when I was still a high school principal, I used to term it as McWriting. That you could kind of teach kids a very basic formula, whether it's a 3-paragraph essay or a 5-paragraph essay. They're asking us to go a little bit deeper now.
Sounds good.
Certainly is harder.
Oh, thank God we went to school in the 70s and
I know.
80s.
There's nothing wrong with harder.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, anything else on that? So I'm sure as we get closer through November and then the holidays, we'll have more on that at the school committee level. And then last but not least, really simply kind of going back to athletics, I put in your packet our enrollment numbers in athletics. Right now, we've got 242 student athletes in our fall sports, which is comparable to, if you take the small handful of 7th and 8th grade girls that are doing field hockey, I think it comes out to be about 35% of our students at the high school are participating in a fall sport. So very healthy numbers. Represents an increase of 10 students this year versus last year. And that's good. Also with a decrease in enrollment at the high school, we've got more kids playing. And I think I also put in the background notes, we also decreased the number of scholarships for, almost by 50% from 16 to 9. So again, going with a flat fee of $175 a sport is very, very helpful towards those ends. Okay, any questions? All right. Where I go.
Should I do the budget?
Yeah, that was Jay.
Oh, that was Jay at the beginning, okay. The administrative comments, okay, to subcommittee updates. So superintendent evaluation committee, we just finished the cycle, so we're gonna be setting our next meeting. How about budget subcommittee?
Just our initial meeting of the budget subcommittee will be Thursday, the 15th of October, and that will be at 6 p.m. at the Nipmuc PDC. It'll be right before the next multi-board meeting. And the purpose behind that meeting will be to establish the goals for the FY17 budget and also to establish the budget calendar.
Okay, old business, school committee workshop, potential dates.
Okay, so I put in your background notes that I did have some contact with Dr. Blummer, and he is happy to come back and to facilitate a school committee workshop. The date that worked best for him was the 7th of October. I believe that's a week from this coming Thursday, is it? A week from Wednesday. I think the time frame that we would look at would be 5:30 to 8. It would kind of be a light supper, and then just kind of work through it. I did have the opportunity to speak to Phil. He's available. He's actually in the country. So just basically surveying, is that a possibility, or does anybody have conflicts?
I would maybe try and reschedule a meeting. I
Okay.
wouldn't- With the meetings that I have currently on the calendar, I wouldn't be able to get here till 6:15.
Okay.
It's good for me. That's fine.
Okay, so October 7th is fine? Okay, so I will schedule that.
So it's 5:30 to what?
8.
8:30? Right. And if I can't get this meeting rescheduled, are you okay with me coming in at 6:15?
That's perfectly fine.
I might be a little bit late as well.
Do you want me to schedule it at 6 instead? That'd be better.
I would be less late.
6 to 8:30? So 6 to 8:30?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. We could do that.
Okay. On to new business, district action plans for 15-16.
Okay. You have in your packet, in draft form, a copy of our action plans for this current school year. I'd like to be able to present what our goals are in just a very kind of loose thumb sketch of what some of our key actions are for each of those 5 goals. Now keep in mind, as we have for each of the last 2 years, we have used our 5-year strategic plan as really kind of the guidepost of each of our goals. And our 4 big rocks, or the 4 overarching goals, kind of speak to these 4 strategic objectives. 1, what are we doing to improve our instruction? And really, instructional excellence covers curriculum instruction and assessment. 2, what are we doing to expand options and programming for all kids? 3, performance management, what are we doing to improve how we assess student performance, but also how the adults in the organization are improving? And then last but not least, what are we doing to improve communication, collaboration, and outreach? So 5 of our strategic objectives, and we've decided progressively each year. I think the first year we looked at 13 different strategic objectives, which was initiatives, which was probably really insane. So we're kind of really focusing on 5 strategic initiatives, and those being supported by 5 goals. So our first goal kind of speaks to what we're doing with assessments, and specifically we have a strategic initiative around the development and implementation of common assessments. So the goal is by June of 2016, all educators in the district will adopt or develop at least 4 standards-aligned common assessments, including 1 placement or diagnostic assessment, 1 formative assessment or Reading Wonders program assessment, and 1 summative assessment. Okay? So if you go through this, and not, this is just kind of a snapshot, but within the actual document are key action steps and benchmarks of successful achievement. But the vision around this is to give our professionals the time and the support that they need through professional development, through common planning time, through team time, to either identify or to develop common assessments. Part of the educator evaluation system requires that common assessments be used as DDMs, or district determined measures. And the vision behind that is you really need to vet your common assessments to make sure that they're fair, they're valid, and reliable for what they're assessing. The vision following the vetting of assessments is to have a parameter setting committee that would define, okay, if you're using common assessments and you're coming up with benchmarks, what represents low growth, moderate growth, and high growth for students through the course of the year. Also, some of the key actions, if you're going to be using common assessments, are teams of teachers that are using them, are they scoring them in a similar fashion? Particularly when there's some type of subjectivity, if, in something like writing, or you're using a writing rubric. So some work with our staff in calibrating our common assessments is key as well. So real important goal. I want to be very explicit, and I'm always very explicit when discussing this with the principals, but also with teachers, that yes, we have educator evaluation, we have the requirements of these DDMs, or district determined measures. I choose to kind of put that aside I think it's good practice that you use common assessments with your kids. So really, the focus is there around the common assessments rather than the mandated things that we have to do from the Department of Education. Our second goal, again, it's kind of continuation of what type of work are we doing to spell out our curriculum? What type of work are we doing to map our curriculum? We've talked about UBD, or Understanding by Design. It has 3 stages to it. We're in great shape with regard to stage 1, which kind of speaks to defining your standards and your content and what all kids should know and be able to do. Stage 2 is kind of planning backwards and looking at the assessments that you're going to use for that content. So the goal is actually, we will have stages 1 and 2 formally written as a way to support our ongoing curriculum review and revision cycle, as a way to align the actual taught and written curriculum, to ensure that we have effective coordination and articulation of the curriculum within the district, and that our parents and our community members know exactly what kids should know and be able to do at every grade level. Okay? So if you look at some of our key actions, our stage 1 curriculum maps are published right now. They're live. If you go to our website, you can actually see on Rubicon Atlas our stage 1 curriculum maps for our courses. We've got work to do, and we plan on doing this through the PD process on training our people on what exactly stage 2 is and how would you actually upload your assessments into Rubicon Atlas. And then also the use of, and Maureen Cohen, our curriculum director, has developed and kind of adopted from multiple sources a curriculum review rubric that teams of teachers can use to ensure that their maps are of a high standard. And then also, both Maureen and our principals doing walkthroughs in our classroom, again, that piece around ensuring that what the kids are being taught is actually aligned with the written curriculum. Okay, so those are some of our key actions. Goal 3 is also a continuation that we've given significant support, budgetary and through time and through infrastructure, to increase what we've been doing with regard to inclusion. So by the end of this school year, we will increase inclusion opportunities for all students in grades K through 12. So some of our key actions kind of speak to what are we doing with our schedules, and a lot of work not only being done at the elementary grades with the increase of 2 FTEs for inclusion for grades 1 and 2, but also restructuring some of our special ed assignments here at the middle school. One of our kind of themes this year, and we talked about this at the last meeting, is really around the growth mindset. And you know, how do we instill more of the growth mindset in our teachers and therefore in our students? So there's some key action steps around that. Also ongoing PD with regard to inclusion. We've had a district-wide inclusion committee. We've had PD opportunities, particularly at the elementary level for our teachers around inclusion practices. And we've also done some visits to various schools and districts that are doing inclusion well. So kind of continuation of that steps. And then something that we're going to make a priority for this coming spring is kind of to step back and kind of do an analysis of how successful are our inclusion practices. We're now on, correct me if I'm wrong, year 3 of inclusion at grades 3 and 4 at Clough and at Memorial, looking at some of our student performance metrics and looking at its success, and therefore making some recommendations for action plan steps moving forward. Okay. Grade 4, not grade 4, goal 4 kind of speaks to what are we doing with regard to technology integration at all levels. So the goal itself is by June of 2016, further integrate technology into teaching and learning through an instruction and assessment strategies that use technology as a means to communicate, collaborate, and/or innovate. And again, this is at all levels. So if you look through this, there's a lot of action steps, kind of speaks to a lot of work that's going on at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. Some of it kind of speaks to, we made an investment for our math teachers here at MISCO with regard to the smart boards, so ensuring that they've got appropriate training for that. We talked a little at the last meeting about doing the Ed Camp process for professional development. I know our tech staff and also we've got middle school and high school teachers. They're excited to host a regional Ed Camp on a Saturday in November. So for teachers within the Blackstone Valley, for that PD opportunity. Something that we will be commencing this coming month is establishing a committee and revising our 5-year technology plan and having that completed by February of next year. Continuing our work with community tech gatherings for parents, short workshops so that they understand, particularly with our one-to-one learning initiative, but also doing the community iFair once again, as we did last year in March. And then also formalizing in writing a K-12 digital citizenship curriculum. So we talk about appropriate use, we talk about use of social media, we talk about, the do's and don'ts of being an online citizen, ensuring that we have a sequential curriculum that makes sense and that it's also age and grade appropriate. So formalizing that by the end of the school year. So a lot of goals there, but very much worthwhile.
Can I ask a quick?
Absolutely.
So about the technology plan, I know we had talked about that. Can you just reiterate who would be involved with that and when it will begin?
Okay, so we're looking to establish, and I will put out an all call to our parents, but we're looking to establish a workable committee, a committee of approximately 12 to 15 members of administrators, teachers, and parents to develop a 5-year technology plan. Right now, the previous plan is obsolete. So this is really, the most important thing is about the vision of technology moving forward, okay? Of where does the district see itself in 5 years, and the most important thing is what type of outcomes do we want for our students at every grade level and then when they graduate from our district. So that'll be really the key work of that. And again, equal constituency of parents, teachers, administrators in this committee. Okay? And we're looking to get that up and running for around October 15th.
Thank you.
So then last but not least, the 5th goal, and I think we talked about this as well a couple school committee meetings ago. The district will streamline communications to keep parents informed in an efficient and timely manner. The district will also market itself by regularly highlighting best practices and achievements to all stakeholders. Okay, so this is a pretty extensive, pretty heady goal, and you can see a lot of key action steps there. To highlight a few of them, we talked about some of the feedback that we got with regard to many emails, particularly if you have kids in more than one schools, even though you're getting emails on Mondays and Thursdays, are people just kind of deleting or not opening all of the attachments and so on. So the talk of having kind of a web page that's one-stop shopping that you could sort any type of announcements. So we anticipate getting that up and running. We've commenced some work on that within the next couple of weeks or so. I talked a little bit about hosting an ed camp, and we're also looking to host a one-to-one learning open house. And that would be a statewide event open to educators across the state at NIPMUC to see the work that we're doing with one-to-one. Something that's a pet project of mine is to publish and disseminate a district performance report that would be published and sent to every single home and every single business within our 2 towns. And this would be a performance report that talks about how our students are doing on things like standardized tests, but also how our kids are doing as far as when they graduate, what kind of schools do they go to, looking at things like our financial data, various metrics in which, are basically getting the data in a concise form as far as the health of the district. The district that has been doing it for now about 15 years is Needham. I know Diane and I think Lee and I. Yeah, and that's kind of my exemplar, and it's been a goal of mine for at least the last 3 years, and I'm very optimistic we can get it done this year. Something that Jay is very passionate about, and at an upcoming meeting, maybe I'll make this part of my report so you can get an idea, but there's an application that's actually open source software. It's called Visual Budget. And essentially, it's an app that a town, a municipality, or in our case, a regional school district can adopt, that it's basically a very clean, easy way to look at budgetary data. So that if you wanted to see, okay, of the $11,500 per pupil expenditure per student, how much of that is going towards teacher salaries? How much of that is going towards special education? How much of that is going towards textbooks? So it's a different, clean, easy way to look at the budget. I know Jay's goal is to get the software and then to be able to load all the MURSD budget data into it and then make it go live online. So I think that'll be a powerful tool, particularly as we go through the spring budget season, to have that up and running. And then the last bullet point is a very interesting one. If you notice any of our official documents, we always put up the Mendon logo and put up the Upton logo, right? We don't have an official logo for the district. So this past year, in conjunction with the Mendon 350 committee, which I know Kevin Rudden has played a big role in, we actually had a contest that we put out to our students, and it was MISCO students, to basically use a graphic design program to develop a logo for the Mendon 350 celebration. Our thinking is, why not do the same thing for all of our students for an actual logo for the district, to brand the district? So obviously I'll keep the, in my humble opinion, it should be the school committee's decision. I don't want to tell a kid no, but anyway, story. To generate some buzz as far as a new MURSD logo. So again, those are just some of our key highlights. I think there's a lot there with regard to some of the action steps, but again, getting out more word in an efficient and a timely manner about a lot of the great things happening in the district. So I'd be happy, I know that's a lot in a relatively short period of time, but I'd be happy to take any questions about any of the goals, any of the action plan steps.
So I have a few.
Mm-hmm.
Under technology, goal 4.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about within the plan, where is it that kids get keyboarding? Or is there within the programming specific curriculum for teaching kids keyboarding, or are
Okay,
they?
to my knowledge, Dorothy, it starts at the elementary
Yeah.
level with our two technology teachers, the two Katies, Katie Jordan and Katie Dutton. So it
Okay.
definitely starts at the elementary level, and I know it carries up here to the middle school as well.
I think it starts in second and third. is
Where
when
they get the
first
actual
their
keyboard.
instruction
Okay.
in
I
technology.
think they used to use Typing Pals. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they're still
Okay.
doing that same program or not, but I think they used to use
Okay.
Typing
What's
Pals.
the name?
Type to learn.
Type to
Type
Learn
to
is the
Learn,
name of the
yeah.
program.
And so they're beginning that at second or third grade?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, under the curriculum for, the common assessments,
The first goal?
under goal 2,
Oh, goal 2, okay.
how does that get incorporated into, the immersion program? As far as like, if they're coming up with common assessments for math, science, are they also being assessed as to where they are language-wise for the Spanish component? Or is there any type of common assessment to determine, let's say, a 5th grader or a 6th grader or a 7th grader, where on the spectrum their language would be?
Probably, if we're talking just within the scope of a common assessment,
Yeah,
it's not going to be assessing what you're speaking to. It's probably going to be assessing some type of common strand that runs across the grade level. So for example, if there is in 6th grade social studies, they agree, okay, we're going to give a common assessment on comparing and contrasting the Aztecs versus the Mayans. And they're going to develop some type of essay component and maybe some type of project base. The 6th grade teachers are going to give it to their kids. Megan De Silva is going to give it to her kids. It's just going to be, the prompts are going to be in Spanish. So it isn't necessarily a common assessment. You know, maybe within the context, there's a rubric where Megan is going to be assessing the writing and looking at grammar and fluency and so on. But I think with regard to this particular piece around the common assessments, it's probably more about content and skills.
across the board. So will the immersion teachers be working together as a team to look at assessments for the language component of that program? Like it's learning language, like Spanish, like how do we know?
As far as benchmarks
Yeah.
and so on.
Like how do we know that a 5th grader has met, or has the vocabulary, or has the writing skills in Spanish of what they should have for a 5th grader? How do we gauge that?
I would say yes, they are working on that. I think they work on it in teams when they meet during PD time, when they meet during, curriculum workshops and so on. As far as some of the specific benchmarks that they use, I think I'd have to research that.
May I piggyback on, is that something that, because you have all your curriculum mapping for the English dominant programs, do you have a language curriculum map for the languages for the
Yes.
growth and development?
Mhm.
So is all of that in Rubicon and will be
Correct.
open to us once
Yep.
it goes live?
Yep.
Okay.
But let me follow up on that for you, as far as your specific question, as far as grade level proficiency
In that
in the
language.
target
Yeah.
language, not necessarily grade level proficiency in a specific content area.
Right,
Right.
Okay.
that'd be great.
Yep.
So I have something in the final objective, improving communication, collaboration, and outreach, and it's something that I talked about before, and something that I'd love to see included in this, the key actions, is coming up with like a unified standard of communication for administrators, for teachers, and we've also talked about, actually I think I've spoken with you, Joe, about it, is moving towards like a unified technological platform, like at the middle school level, that teachers are communicating with parents on, like Edmodo, or, and I'm not saying that we could make that happen this year, but something to move towards. So that's one piece, but the other piece is like a standard of communication, like a welcoming newsletter from every school, whether you go to Memorial, Nipmuc, whatever. And, or maybe that can be trickle down to teachers, that teams of teachers providing a newsletter to parents of expectations of what the year will bring, versus that mode of communication just be the open house night, where not everybody can attend. So a collaboration of information that's expected from each administrator, and then also, like I said, to trickle down to teams of teaching teams.
Okay, I would say yes to an action step with regard to developing some type of consistency in the standard of communication. I would say it would probably be very helpful to, and I know you volunteered to be part of the technology plan committee, bring that to the fore as far as the tech committee, as far as to put
You're talking about like
action
the
plans.
Edmodo piece.
Exactly, the
Okay.
whole piece around, okay, you know, at the middle school, we're going to be using this tool versus the high school and so on. I think we'd be well served to start that discussion there,
Mhm.
and then to develop some concrete plans to see that through.
Mhm.
Okay?
So the equivalent of this for, like what I was talking about more like the written piece or even an online piece, the equivalent for me is, because we're on the school committee, we're privy to all of the emails that each of the principals sends out
Mhm.
every morning with kind of a rundown for their staff of what the day will entail. Certainly don't need anything that frequent, but like at the beginning of the year, a communication like that would give you a little bit greater detail about what you can expect this year. And then for a classroom, what you can expect curriculum-wise, like, and then there's usually certain events, things like that. But I always am so impressed with the principals' daily, this is what you can expect today.
Yeah.
It's very,
So so just to kind of nail down what you're saying, as far as developing a standard of communication, more uniformity of communication
Mhm.
from the 4 schools with things like an overview of the school year, or overview of events,
right,
upcoming events,
and that
so
would
on.
obviously be different coming from a principal perspective, giving a whole school perspective versus a team of teachers
Mhm.
perspective. And actually, I had a question, the keys to Clough, is that?
That's on our, I was about to hand that out when we got to.
Yes, so I thought that was fabulous.
Communication.
Is Memorial doing the
Yes.
same thing?
Yeah.
Is MISCO and Nipmuc, is everybody doing that? I was just curious more than anything.
Okay, here, well.
It's a good segue.
This really came out of kind of a grassroots kind of level as far as the discussion. And I was planning on having Jan present on this and kind of do a PR piece at our next meeting in October.
Okay.
This is an event that's going to be held the evening of the 27th of October, which I believe is a Tuesday night. from 6 to 8:15. And this is kind of a event to anything that you've always been curious about your kid's school, if your kid goes to Clough, that you kind of want to know more about. So it's going to be an opportunity, almost kind of like what we did with the Community Eye Fair, where people could cycle through different tables, cycle through different sessions, where say you want to learn more about special ed services, say you want to learn more about what's going on with technology or what's going on with keyboarding, say you want to learn more about what is the scope and the sequence of the curriculum and so on. So that's what this evening is about. They're calling it Keys to Clough. I know Memorial is planning on doing something probably in the early part of December. I think they're kind of using Clough as kind of the guinea pig, so to speak. But I think it's an outstanding idea. I know Jan has a team of teachers that are very excited about doing this. So more information will be forthcoming on that during our next meeting on the 19th. Okay. So any other questions regarding, I will add an action step or 2 regarding the streamlining of communication and developing a consistent standard of communication.
Okay.
I'll run that past you.
Okay.
But anything else?
I personally think it looks great. I think it's very clear and broken down, well broken down into benchmarks. And I see it's getting there, because we usually do. Anybody else? Okay.
Motion for approval?
I get a motion to approve the district action plans for 2015 and 16.
I make a motion to accept the district action plans for 2015-16.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. On to correspondences. Do we have any correspondences?
Just one that we put in your packet. Unfortunately, I say it fortunately for her, because I know she's relocating with her husband up to Maine, but you have in your packet the letter of retirement from O'Mara Thornton, who's been the SI aide at Clough for, it's got to be at least 15 years now, right? Closer to 20 years?
She was at Memorial too.
Yeah, so outstanding job.
She's wonderful.
You know, a wonderful lady, just such an asset for the program. She's going to be retiring as of Thursday, so we wish her well.
Okay, do we have any other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the meeting? No? Okay. Future agenda items include the NEASC accreditation process overview on October 18th, the superintendent's annual plan for 15-16 on October 18th, school improvement plans for October 18th, that's going to be busy. And the MCAS accountability results for 2015 on November 7th. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned at 8:23. Yes, now let's look at dates.
Thank you, take care.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pass the note.
You guys know how to